I never thought a single glance could feel like a warning and a promise all at once. But there she was, leaning against the kitchen counter, arms crossed, half-smile teasing, as if she already knew exactly what I was thinking. My friend's mom. My friend's mom who, somehow, had made my heart skip like it was some reckless teenager thing, even though I knew better. I had come over to help with moving boxes, completely innocent, or at least that's what I told myself. But from the second she opened the door, the air had shifted. Her hair, slightly mussed from the morning, caught the light in a way that made it shine like it was alive. Her eyes, green, flecked with gold, watched me, assessing, teasing, daring me to speak first. "Coffee?" she asked, voice casual, but the tilt of her head said everything she wasn't saying. I nodded, fumbling with the mug like a clumsy fool, aware that my hands were trembling. Not from the lifting, not really. She moved around me in the small kitchen, reaching for sugar, her sleeve brushing my arm. I froze for a second longer than I should have, because that touch, so brief, so casual, made my chest tighten. She glanced at me, and I could swear there was something in her look that wasn't just surprise, or amusement, or curiosity. Something like anticipation. We didn't talk much at first. Just little things. Coffee poured too strong. A joke about the old stereo. A casual remark about the boxes. But the silence between our words was heavier than the conversation itself. My brain knew I shouldn't feel like this. I shouldn't want to linger near her. Shouldn't notice how her perfume smelled faintly of vanilla and something more intoxicating. Shouldn't wonder what it would feel like to hold her hand for just 1 second. She laughed at something I said. A soft, quiet laugh that made the room feel smaller and hotter at the same time. I wanted to memorize it, to bottle it, but I only managed a shaky smile. She caught it, raising an eyebrow. "Careful," she said, lips twitching. "You might make me think you're more than just a boy." I choked on my coffee a little, and she didn't miss it. Her eyes flicked to mine, a mix of challenge and something else. Heat, maybe. And I realized, with a slow, shocking clarity, that this wasn't a game she wasn't playing. She was playing too. I tried to focus on the task, stacking boxes, pretending my heart wasn't racing, pretending my thoughts weren't running wild. But every glance, every accidental brush, made it impossible. She moved closer to grab a box I was holding, and our fingers touched. I could feel the static, a spark that had nothing to do with electricity and everything to do with her. She gave me that little half-smile again, the one that always left me wondering if she could see straight into my thoughts. And I thought maybe, just maybe, I wanted her to. The room grew quiet again, the kind of quiet that makes your own breathing too loud. I wanted to ask something, anything, but my words caught in my throat. She tilted her head, studying me, and I realized the question didn't need to be asked. And then, the sound of the doorbell cut through the tension like a sharp knife. She glanced toward it, eyes narrowing slightly, and I knew neither of us had been expecting anyone. But the way she looked back at me, with that flicker of something unspoken, made my stomach twist and my mind spin. Somehow, I already knew that nothing would ever feel normal again. I kept telling myself it was just curiosity, just a weird crush that would fade once I left the house. But as I carried the last of the boxes to the living room, I couldn't stop noticing the way she moved around the space. Effortless, confident, like she owned the air itself. She paused near the sofa, smoothing a throw blanket, and I caught a glimpse of the lines at the corners of her eyes, the faint traces of laugh lines that made her real, human, untouchably beautiful. She noticed me staring, of course. "Something on your mind?" she asked, voice light but curious. My throat went dry. I shook my head. "Nothing," I muttered, and immediately cursed myself for lying. There was more I wanted to know about her than I had ever wanted to know about anyone. Who she had been before the house, the coffee, the teasing smiles. I had heard snippets from my friend, divorced for a few years, protective of her space, careful with her heart, but none of it prepared me for the warmth that hovered around her like a halo, or the vulnerability hidden behind her sharp humor. And then I remembered my own mistakes, the awkward, half-hearted attempts at romance I'd made in college. The shame I'd carried for being inexperienced, the guilt for hurting someone unintentionally, the embarrassment of realizing I had no idea how to navigate a heart bigger than my own. All of that felt small here, insignificant, like it belonged to someone else. But it also made me hesitant, afraid. She caught me watching again. Her expression softened, not teasing this time, just curious. "You seem careful," she said, "like you're waiting for permission to breathe." I wanted to tell her that I was. That I didn't know how to exist in her presence without tripping over every word, every thought, every feeling. That the idea of being near her made me feel both alive and foolish. But I didn't. I just nodded, trying to look calm while my hands itched to reach for hers. There was risk here, of course, too obvious to ignore. I was her son's friend, barely out of childhood myself. And she had history I couldn't touch, life experience that dwarfed mine. Yet every time she leaned in to grab a book, every time our fingers brushed reaching for the same object, I felt an electric tug I couldn't rationalize. She sighed softly, as if sensing my inner struggle. Then she moved closer, kneeling to adjust a rug, and I knelt opposite her to help. Our knees brushed. Our hands hovered over the same edge of the rug, hesitant, lingering. I could feel her warmth, the subtle scent of her perfume, and I realized we were sharing a quiet, intimate moment that belonged only to us. She looked up at me then, eyes steady, voice a whisper. "You're not just a boy, are you?" I swallowed hard. And in that single glance, that unspoken acknowledgement, I felt the walls between us blur. A connection that neither of us had named yet, but both of us already recognized, lingered in the small living room like a secret we weren't ready to speak aloud. For the first time, I wondered if maybe some risks were worth taking. I told myself to stop noticing her, to focus on something, anything, other than the way her laugh curled around the air like smoke, or the subtle tilt of her head when she looked at me. But as she leaned over to rearrange a stack of magazines, our shoulders bumped, and I felt that jolt again. "Careful," she said, eyes meeting mine, but her lips quirked up as if she knew exactly what she was doing. I swallowed hard. I wanted to step back, to tell myself this was impossible, wrong, dangerous, but my feet didn't move. Then the front door clicked. My stomach plummeted. It was her ex, her first husband, dropping by to pick something up, she had said casually over the phone earlier. I froze. She stiffened. There was a flash, just a second, of guardedness in her eyes, a subtle warning I wasn't supposed to read. "Hey, Lori," he said, voice casual, like he didn't notice the tension hanging in the room. My name wasn't Lori, of course, but my presence suddenly felt like trespassing. She straightened immediately, professional, polite. "Hey, Tom. Just grabbing a few things." Her hand brushed against mine briefly as she passed, and my heart thudded. I tried to look anywhere but at her face, but my eyes betrayed me. And then she looked back, and I saw it. The fraction of a second when she wanted something forbidden, something risky, something only I could give her. He didn't notice. Or maybe he did, but didn't comment. And somehow, that made it worse. We were two people orbiting a line we shouldn't cross, and now the world, or at least the people around us, couldn't ignore it. I stepped forward to help her with a box she was lifting. Our hands collided, lingered. She met my gaze, and I saw the same question I'd been carrying mirrored in her green-gold eyes. Was it just desire? Was it something more? But then she pulled back, just a little, enough to remind me that she was careful, that the risk was real. And I wanted to argue with her, to say that I didn't care, that I didn't want safe boundaries anymore. But I didn't. We worked in tense silence, the room thick with unspoken words. Every glance, every breath, every accidental brush of our fingers became loaded, dangerous, impossible. He left eventually, unaware of the storm he'd walked into, and I felt an odd relief, and a pang of loss all at once. The room felt emptier, colder, but only because she had pulled back slightly. Her eyes, though, stayed on me longer than necessary as she tidied up the mess. "Your trouble," she said softly, almost a whisper. And I knew she didn't mean mischief or danger. She meant me. The complication, the risk, the impossible attraction neither of us could name aloud. I wanted to lean in. I wanted to tell her she didn't have to pull away, that I would risk whatever it took. But I stayed still. Just breathed. Watched. And then, she smiled. Just a fraction. Just enough. And in that small curve of her lips, I felt the pull stronger than ever. We were on the edge, and neither of us wanted to fall yet. I couldn't stop thinking about her. Not during the drive home. Not in the shower. Not when I tried to drown my thoughts in the noise of music or late-night texting with friends. Every memory from that afternoon clawed at me. The way her fingers brushed mine. The look she gave me when Tom was there. That fleeting half-smile that meant more than words ever could. And then I saw him. Not Tom. My friend. Her son. Walking down the street toward the house. Laughing with someone else, oblivious. My chest tightened. Suddenly the risk wasn't just hers. It was mine too. And I hated it. I stormed back to the kitchen the next day, needing air, needing to see her, needing to feel the tension and the pull. She was there, organizing groceries, humming softly. It should have felt normal. It didn't. "You're tense," she said without looking up, but I heard it. Heard the way she said it, as if she already knew the real reason. I'm fine," I muttered, too aware that my voice cracked slightly. Her hands froze over the cartons. She turned, green eyes locking with mine, and something raw flashed in them. Annoyance, desire, fear, maybe all three. "You're lying," she said softly. Her words weren't an accusation. They were a dare. I swallowed. I can't, the word stuck. Couldn't explain the storm inside me. The shame, the want, the guilt. "I can't stop thinking about you." Her breath hitched just slightly. She looked away, then back again. "You know this is dangerous," she whispered. Her hand brushed against mine again as she passed a jar. Not intentionally, not with purpose, but it lingered. My heart skipped. I stepped closer without thinking, drawn by something older and deeper than logic. "Dangerous," I echoed, my voice low, raw. Maybe that's exactly why it matters." Her lips parted, and she stared at me in silence. The room shrank around us. Every sound, the refrigerator humming, a car passing outside, my own heartbeat, was deafening. I felt a twinge of jealousy before I even realized what it was. Her son, friends, the world outside. Anything that could take her away, even for a moment. And I hated that I felt it, hated that I wanted her in a way I shouldn't. Her hand brushed mine again, and this time I didn't pull away. She didn't pull away either. Our fingers hovered, almost touching, trembling slightly. It was dangerous, thrilling, intoxicating. Then she sighed, leaning back against the counter. "You're not just a boy," she murmured again. Not teasing this time. Serious. Vulnerable. The words hit me in the chest. I wanted to speak, to confess everything. The want, the fear, the guilt, but my mouth refused. We stood there, inches apart, and the air felt like it was charged with something neither of us could name. My hand twitched toward hers, her eyes softened, her breath shallow. And just as I was about to close the distance, to take that one step that could change everything, the sound of a text ping from her phone shattered the fragile bubble around us. She glanced at the screen, eyes widening, lips parting in surprise. My chest dropped. And then, silence. I watched her stare at her phone, the way her green-gold eyes widened just enough to make my stomach drop. I wanted to step closer, to ask what was wrong, but something held me back, a mix of respect and fear that this could ruin everything before it even began. She turned toward me, lips pressed tight, and my heart sank. "It's nothing," she said, but her voice trembled, betraying her calm. I knew better. Then the message came again, a new notification, brief, urgent. My name popped up in her mind instantly. She wasn't ignoring it. Her eyes flicked to the screen, then back at me, and I realized someone had seen us. Or worse, overheard us. Someone who could make everything impossible. I didn't know how to tell you," she whispered finally, almost to herself. Her hand shook as she held the phone. "I thought it would stay between us, but now, between us?" I asked, stepping closer, needing clarity, needing her. "Yes," she admitted, her voice small. "I thought no one would know. I thought I could. I don't know, control it." My pulse raced. Control what? I asked, though I had a fair idea. Her hands pressed against her face for a moment. When she looked up, there were tears threatening to spill. Tom called my friend earlier. He knows you were here yesterday. He saw you too in the living room. Not exactly innocent. I froze. The world tilted slightly. Tom, her ex. He had seen us. Maybe judged. Maybe told someone else. Maybe now everything I had wanted, the slow burn, the careful moments, was suddenly on the edge of being exposed. I wanted to reach for her hand, but she stepped back, shaking her head. We can't do this. Not if he's involved. Not if, she trailed off, unable to finish. I wanted to argue, to tell her it didn't matter, that nothing outside mattered when it came to us. But I stayed silent, because I saw the fear in her eyes, the weight of history pressing on her, and realized that this wasn't just about desire. It was about safety, reputation, all the things I could never fully understand at her age. Yet, even as she pulled back, I felt it. Our connection, fragile but undeniable. I hated that it had to be complicated. Hated that someone else's presence, their judgment, could make something I wanted so badly feel forbidden. She sighed, the sound like it had been drawn from deep inside her, full of regret and longing. I can't. I don't know if we should. Not now. Not like this. My chest tightened. I felt the heat of frustration, the sting of helplessness, but also an undercurrent of something dangerous, the stubborn refusal to let go. Maybe we're supposed to fight for it, I said, voice low, steady but shaking slightly. Maybe it's worth the risk. Her eyes softened, glimmering with something between hope and terror. She took a step closer, almost closing the gap, but then the sound of another message from her phone made her flinch. I reached out instinctively, fingers brushing her arm. Whatever it is, I whispered, we face it together. I'm not walking away. She looked at me, swallowed hard, and for a moment, just breathed with me. The tension didn't leave. If anything, it thickened, but the moment held something new, a quiet, unspoken defiance against everything outside the room. And then, the screen lit up again, revealing the name that would change everything. I didn't think I could stand another second of waiting. The phone screen glowed between us, a silent accusation, a warning, a reminder of everything outside these four walls. And yet, for the first time, I didn't care. She looked at me, green eyes wide, vulnerability bleeding through the usual poise. I can't just ignore this, she whispered, voice trembling. Everything I've tried to control, it's slipping. I stepped closer, feeling the warmth radiate off her, the scent of vanilla and something sharper, more intoxicating, wrapping around me. You don't have to control it, I said, low, steady. Not with me. Not anymore. Her lips parted, as if to argue, to list all the reasons we shouldn't, couldn't, to remind herself of the world outside, but she didn't. She just looked at me, really looked, and I saw the struggle, the fear, the longing she had been burying behind polite smiles and teasing remarks. I'm scared, she admitted finally. Scared of losing everything. Scared of being wrong. I swallowed hard. Then don't think about being right or wrong. Just be here, with me. Her gaze flicked to the window, to the street beyond, to the invisible lines drawn by other people's opinions. But then it came back to me, steady, like a lifeline. She exhaled slowly, shoulders slumping in a mix of relief and surrender. We were close enough now that I could see the tiny flecks of gold in her eyes, the little crease at the corner that always appeared when she smiled genuinely, unguarded. My hand reached up instinctively, brushing a stray strand of hair behind her ear. Her skin was warm, soft, and I felt a jolt. Fear, yes, but mostly belonging. I don't know what comes next, she murmured, almost to herself. I don't know if it'll work, or if it's even fair. I don't know either, I admitted. But I do know I don't want to walk away. Not from you. Not now. The room felt impossibly small. Every sound, the faint hum of the refrigerator, the creak of the floorboards, our synchronized breaths, was amplified. I could see her hands trembling, and I stepped closer, letting our fingers touch properly this time. Not fleeting, not accidental. Holding, anchoring, daring. Her lips quivered. She didn't move away. She let herself stay, let herself be vulnerable. I could feel the pulse of her heartbeat against mine, a rhythm I wanted to memorize forever. Then, just as I opened my mouth to say something more, anything more, the sound of her phone buzzed again. Not urgent this time. Just a reminder that the world outside our fragile bubble still existed. She glanced at it, then back at me, and our eyes locked. No words were needed. No promises. Just a shared understanding, messy and real, that we had chosen this moment, each other, even if the future was uncertain. And in that quiet, unsteady embrace of decision, I realized something both terrifying and exhilarating. Love didn't have to be safe. It only had to be ours. The weeks that followed were quiet, charged, and strange all at once. We didn't announce anything, didn't make bold gestures for the world to see. That wasn't our style, not hers, not mine. Instead, we found small, ordinary moments that carried all the weight of our decision. She made coffee exactly the way I liked it, always a little too strong, always with that faint scent of vanilla lingering in the air. I helped her with the boxes she hadn't had time to unpack, laughing at how stubbornly she refused to admit she needed help. Every glance, every accidental brush of hands, carried the tension of what we hadn't said, the thrill of what we had chosen. There were still risks. I knew people whispered, friends wondered, and she carried her own caution, her own shadows of past mistakes, in her careful steps and quiet smiles. But in the small apartment that smelled of coffee and sunlight, we created our own rules. No one else mattered when we were together. One evening, I found her sitting on the sofa, knees drawn to her chest, staring out the window at the fading sky. I sat beside her without a word, letting the silence speak. She leaned slightly against me, shoulder brushing mine. For the first time, it felt completely safe and utterly impossible all at once. "I never thought it would feel like this," she said, voice low. "Like finally being seen." I glanced at her, heart thudding. "You've always been seen," I said, almost breathless. I just didn't know how to tell you." She smiled, small, wobbly, perfect. And in that quiet moment, I realized that every hesitation, every fear, every stolen glance and lingering touch had brought us here. Messy, real, and ours. Days blended into weeks. We laughed at nothing, bickered over trivial things, and sometimes sat in comfortable silence, hands brushing, shoulders touching, hearts thumping in unison. The world outside our bubble still existed, but it couldn't touch us unless we let it. And in those ordinary days, I saw her, truly saw her, without pretense, without fear. And she saw me, older than I was, not just a boy anymore, but someone she could trust, someone who wanted her wholly, without apology. There was still uncertainty, of course. The future is never guaranteed. But for the first time, I felt ready to face it, together. I reached for her hand, and she didn't hesitate. Fingers intertwined, warmth radiating between us. No grand declarations, no dramatic gestures. Just the knowledge that we had chosen each other, fully, unapologetically, with everything that made us flawed, human, and perfectly imperfect. And as we sat there, watching the sunlight fade into evening, I realized that love doesn't need to be simple. It just needs to be real. Did you enjoy the story? What kind of stories would you like to hear next?